Evening. My name is Veronica Gullis, and we want to thank the Harvard once again for their beautiful space. We want to thank Somos for supporting our endeavors. This particular reading is sponsored by Nighthawk Press, and we want to give a real applause to them. Terry Muse, who I have known for
2 decades.
2 decades, has come to us all the way from New York. She is a trained actor and director, a poet, a phenomenal poet, a licensed social worker, and a marathon runner. That's just things to start us off. Her work, both as poems on the page and as performance pieces, are the center of what we wanted to bring this evening. To really show, in both pieces, to show how from the page, something written for the page, transformed into a performance piece, and then, in her case, back to her book. Which called Overexposed, which I wrote the preface to, and I'm going to read a little bit to you from that. What Terry's going to do, because I sort of set the agenda that we were really going to concentrate on how to adapt, the adaptation, the art of adaptation. So she has, and so has our other actors and writers, really pushed her work so that we can see that link. She's going to start reading 2 poems, not yet performed, a selection of her performed poems, Anatomy of a Doll. This Anatomy of the Doll is a one-woman show that grew out of her writing of poems, and she has traveled really around the country with this one-woman show. She's going to do selections, and then end with 2 poems from her book. So we're going to see the evolution of the craft and genre of her reading and performance. Her work is about reclaiming memory, harsh memory, found in details, the details of everyday life, the small things that trigger memory. And I think best to open up a window to her work. I'd like to read just the first page of what I wrote as the foreword. I remember the first time I saw Terry Muse perform her one-woman show, Anatomy of a Doll. Wherever she moved on stage, there was a light, not just on her, but in her. She'd written the performance pieces as poems over a number of years in workshops I'd led. Over those years, as her work came to light, literally, it felt as if I were looking into a deep green pool, as each piece would rise, sink, and rise again. I say this because the fact of this book, at all, is extraordinary. These poems will take you into the artery of memory. Memory, in fact, that comes not as a seamless whole, but in fragments, in off-center snapshots. Why? Because Terry Muse is speaking the unspeakable. She is speaking of trauma, but do not turn away. For out of that harsh crucible, she has come to affirm, has come to show what poetry can do. Let us give a Taos welcome to Terry Muse.
Well, there's not much to say after Veronica introduces you. Affidavit. My mother said, "Pack your bags. Your father doesn't want us here anymore." He had beat my brother. I was the mistress. We boxed what we could, the summer and the wet heat. My brother cried. My hands, how little they could carry. The callus on my pointer finger, it could peel and be soft again. My brother's bruises. Father was driving. He didn't stop when he pushed my brother from the car. I ran to him. How soft my belly was after sleep. When my father touched me, I flinched. I didn't, but I wanted to learn how. Later, I was raped. I didn't scream. My brother stopped talking, and I knew why. When I cut into my skin, no one asked. I dyed my hair. I was raped on the dorm floor, on the uptown subway platform. The wind rushed, knocked breath into me. I had stopped breathing. I kept breathing when I wanted to stop. I screamed at my mother at the top of the stairs. She wanted to know where I had been. She didn't want to know. When I was 3, she held my head in the crook of her arm while reading to me. She was warm and soft and felt like bread dough. My father said she was a failure and he, my parachute. I drifted from her. He pushed me naked from his lap. I ran as far as possible. I kissed a beautiful girl. I wanted to be a man. She invited me into her mouth. Her tongue gave soft passage. At home, the back scratcher was a stick, a whip. It was, "You will listen to me." It left proof that I existed. I never existed. I let him push me down. Father, the student in the dorm, the man on the subway platform, the beautiful girl said, "No, there, to stay you must kneel." And I did. She pushed me down. I held her to my chest filled with birds. She left, returned to a girlfriend. I threw a glass against the wall. It all shattered. My brother was rocking. We were packing up, moving out. Someone was singing. I didn't die. I died slowly. I locked the door until every voice was silent. From above. He's coming. I look out my bedroom window just in time to see our tan station wagon pull into the gravel of our driveway. The car leaves its red taillight behind it like a stain. My heart begins revving. I feel sick. The engine is shut off and things heighten. Kaleidoscope colors, adrenaline pulling all into a center point. Edges warping, bed, table, desk, a tug of war. White static snow falling, my mind. Reverb on a guitar. I hear a baby crying down a hallway. In my head, in my ear, a tunnel deep inside. Is it a neighbor's baby? Pick it up. It's deafening. A movie version of a baby crying on Dolby surround sound, then a banging, 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 a headboard banging, a door banging open. The heat. It's just the heat coming up in my cold room. The pipes, the heat coming up, shaking the ground. A volcano, no, a hot spring with steam shaking the pipes. It's so cold. The heat coming up through the wooden slats on the floor. Coming up. Shh. Coming up. The father coming up the stairs. I can hear him stealing up, a poisonous gas floating up the staircase. I know exactly which stair, the 4th one, the 5th one that creaks, the section of banister missing a pole, the 8th stair. I am so cold. I am shaking free from myself. I can see me, a movie actress, playing a part. I am playing a part below me. Shh. I am floating the way they say you do when you die. I am split from her, the girl below me, and I watch me pretending until he comes in, comes, and the girl below me, he comes to me, the girl asleep pretending. Then he stays with me, and he stays in me. The t-shirt, eggshell white, worn almost all the way through. In the summer, you could see my 8-year-old brother's tan through the transparency of overwashing. There was a hole in the left armpit and a smaller but more jagged one up at the neckline. The neck and arms were outlined in a blue material. That blue material seemed to be the only visible parameters the shirt had left. There was an iron-on in the center, long faded from overuse, but I think, if memory serves me, it said Dukes of Hazzard, with a picture of that famous car outlined in black. There were yellowish sweat stains under the armpit and a spaghetti sauce stain below and to the side of the faded iron-on, brown and nearly perfectly circular. Can't understand why this was my brother's favorite shirt. I only know that I too came to love this shirt. It was stability. It was the summer of '81. It was street lights and kickball and Carvel. It was walking Bandit, the neighbor's dog, to the 7-Eleven. Hey Terry, I stole the football cards. I put them under my t-shirt. You steal the grape soda. It was as if this shirt were my brother's tattoo. A sort of semi-conscious way to keep things status quo. And whatever they could do to us, the parents, couldn't seem to keep Chris from wearing this shirt. Day in, day out, night in, night out. Always. For years. The date is set for today. I'll wear my cute little shirt and my favorite blue skirt, the one that Daddy bought me in the mall. Daddy likes to pick out my clothing, and my favorite pair of silver earrings, the ones that he bought from Long Beach Island, the ones in the shape of a conch shell. She usually picks out everything, my stepmother, but these, she saw and said, my baby has to have them. The gentle slope of shell curls around the pink lobe of each ear, holding on as if for dear life. I think I'm crazy to be this happy, but I can't help the thrill of slowly stealing him away from her. This is the second her. It's my fault he likes me better. I know what to do. I know what he likes. First time it was much more painful. Many more days I let the guilt drape itself over me. The lead cape at the x-ray table almost suffocating me, but after all, the first time, I was stealing him from my mother. Now it's somebody new. Somebody who says she shouldn't wear those sneakers to school. Somebody with tight bun, the lingering scent of a perfume called Emerald that he bought and picked out for her. But youth is on my side. Her eyes show crow feet and the lines around her mouth begin to sink down, and me, I'm 13 today. My daddy is very tall. He is a policeman. He carries a gun. He lets me fire the gun. Up, 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 he holds me, and then I pull the trigger. Well, the sound is so loud, it's scary. At work, they call my daddy the big man, or Frack. His partner's name is Frick. My daddy collects things. He collects beer steins from Germany and patches from other police departments. Oh, my daddy also collects matches from all over the world. My daddy and I are best friends. He takes me on walks every night after supper where he tells me secret things. Secret things. My daddy's a veteran. That means he fought in a war. Well, he says it wasn't a war in Panama where he fought, but he still lost his hearing in that war, whether it was a war or not. He got to wear a beret in that war and dog tags. I don't know why they call them dog tags. My daddy loves me so much, he holds me in his arms, tighter, tighter. My daddy is so strong, he holds me until I disappear. I disappear. I disappear. Come on, look at me. Yeah, you. Black leather jacket. Or you. Who cares? Buy me a drink, man. I'm itchy tonight. I need something undefinable. I could define it in you if you like. Come over here and kiss me or something, will you? Hey, give me another one of Long Island tea and a tequila shot. I need to loosen up. I'm tight in all the wrong places. This was supposed to be easy tonight here on Avenue A, Pyramid Club, some club, man. It's a fucking bar. Yeah, I'm sitting on the fucking bar! You got a fucking problem with that? Fuck these people. These fishnets are riding up my ass. I wish I wore my other boots. Not my lipstick. Going to college in 2 months. What's that about? What am I gonna do? Hey, look at me. Brown leather jacket. 1:45 in the morning. Hey, sideburns, sideburns. Look at me, you motherfucker. Hey, green vintage shirt. Can't you see I'm dying up here? I need something. Anything. You. It's come to this, lying on a couch in a quiet room, a picture by Van Gogh, a field of flowers, talking to this woman. Beneath my body, the couch, cool green fabric on my skin. It's grass, I tell myself. I try to feel the grass, touch the grass, smell the grass. God, I wish I still smoked grass. It's so tall. My body sinks into it, leaving my outline, a snow angel, but in the grass. Can you make grass angels? My frame is being outlined in the grass. My small frame. No, back to the ceiling. The ceiling is high, hot white light in my eyes. Is the sun in my eyes? And I'm there. Up at the surface, the woman with the green couch and the Van Gogh painting is calling me. The grass, focus on the grass. Remember, the grass is so tall, she can't find you, but she's digging into my dirt. There's something under, something deeper. Breathe. She's covering me in dirt. Breathe. There's no air till I must get up from the couch to breathe. It's the couch. It's the couch in our old house under the big windows. My father has me trapped under the weight of him. Trapped so that I can't breathe. So I turn myself into the rag doll in the flip book from 2nd grade. I'm jumping rope, frame by frame by frame. His frame is my frame as his frame hovers. There's no light, just a shadow of my father stretched longer and longer. He reaches down to pick me up, a doll in his big hands. I can't remember the day he got the shirt, maybe because all of our clothes were hand-me-downs brought to us by parental friends in large green garbage bags for us to sift through. It wasn't until the cotton gave way and softened or until Chris had pulled it over his crouched up knees 7,000 times. Until it became special. It wasn't until the sweat stains, the spaghetti sauce sweetened the shirt somehow, made it lived in, that my brother began his campaign, the Cal Ripken of t-shirt use. My brother kept the streak up until it literally fell off his body in tatters. That's it. Give me the shirt. Give me the shirt. My mother took the shirt from Chris and put it underneath the kitchen sink with a dozen or so other rags. My mother did use the shirt turned rag once. One night she sat huddled in the corner of her bedroom, the digital clock flashing 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, like the garish neon light at the local topless bar my father sat at. She sat, pulling the cord of the nightlight on again, off again, on again. In her lap sat my father's service revolver, cocked, loaded, and wrapped in my brother's favorite t-shirt. Comfort food. Burgundy roses drift down the walls in brown slants across the room. The tip of my pink high-heeled shoe, a sleeping dog at my feet. At the square kitchen table, I sit with my mother, stones in our mouths, father spread out before us that forbidden meal. The table is set, spoon, fork, a knife sharp enough to carve his initials into my arm. For you, my mother says, hands me a postcard, a recent trip through the hills of North Carolina. I imagine us there. The roadside stands buying thick blackberries in green cardboard containers, the kitschy danger of cheap motels, greasy truck stops, homemade cherry cobbler, mashed potatoes, gobs of butter, the gentle opening of conversation. We could put 1,000 miles between us and our history. I push back my chair from the table, the legs grate against the linoleum, a squawk from a falling bird. The olive green jacket arrived with my father inside. The years had made him smaller, and he held his head tilted forward as if the weight of living had finally impelled him to angle in. He was taking me to the bank of a coffee-colored lake to watch duckheads disappear, catching small things below the surface with sharpened beaks. Before we spoke, he took the plain silver watch out of his pocket, held it briefly to his ear, and then wound it 3 times with swift flicks of thumb and forefinger. The unsaid pressed down from the indigo sky, and behind me, the new leaved trees swayed. When he spoke, his voice scraped a wheat reed, brushing the palm of my hand. The horn goes off. 1,000 feet pound the boardwalk across the starting line, Sunken Meadow 5K along the shore of the Long Island Sound. The rhythm of pounding shoes of hundreds of people breathing creates meditation. I try to pace myself. I know I can't start out too fast or I might not finish. I start to measure my breathing, open fish mouth, jaw loose, make sure the air comes in and out, lean slightly forward, let the breath fall into a rhythm, into the rhythm of pounding feet. I have to run and I have to finish. It feels right. The slicing air in my lungs, the tightness in my calves feel full of purpose and vital. I am running, I have to run, and I've always been running. 1 mile split, 8:44, remember that, 8:44, not bad. Are you going too fast? Are you going to be able to finish? Nagging doubts. Strangely, it's my father's voice that comes to me saying, you can do it, you can finish. His voice is both the doubt and the propulsion. You can do anything you want to, my strong, beautiful girl, and no one will love you like I do. I know my body is strong, the 38-hour labor, how much this body has held. We are all running. The old man next to me leans to one side as he runs, gasping asthmatically. He sounds terrible, like he's not going to make it. I wish I could carry him on my back, and again, I think of my father, a small boy, watching his mom bring in the men, one after another for the rent money, until raising 3 boys was just too much for her. Foster care, orphanages, and monthly visits. How far he had to run, how much he carried, and what he lay down at my feet. 17:15, second mile, okay, 2/3 there, no giving in now. My father is back and his voice is so clear. He is right next to me, and when I see him, he is young and running in fatigues on a foreign beach, and his face is red with sunburn, and he is scared. But he yells into my face anyway, "You shut up and you do it. You finish. You make me proud. You want something and you go and you take it. Only the strong make it. You take what you need and you beat them. You beat them all." No. That isn't how I want to finish. That's not the fuel I need anymore. I'm not racing against anyone but me this time. I turn to my side and no one is next to me. I'm running the last leg alone, and then I see it, the finish line. I'm almost there. I squint for the time. How am I doing? It doesn't matter. I will finish. I am running and I will finish. The race is almost over. I dig down for my last reserves. I tell myself, finish strong, but finish open. Notice as you cross. And I do. The bluest water, the air smelling of iodine, the blur of tawny sand, and a few clouds sitting like piles of snow in a perfectly open sky. Run now free. Run towards the line, not away from anything. Thank you.
What we're going to do after David Perez and Bruce McIntosh perform a short one-act play that I'm going to tell you about is we're going to have a Q&A. And I've actually started with some questions. Which I don't think I have. Okay. So, can we applaud what we just saw?
Yeah.
This upcoming short one-act play came from a writing suggestion given by David's son to David, who, like his father, is an actor, but also an emerging screenwriter. The prompt was to rewrite a scene from WOW 2, to be released soon, WOW 1 is over there, as a one-act play, and draw out the character and the dialogue to stay longer in the moment, Dad. That exercise led David to retrieve an unfinished personal essay and revisit it using the same material. The result was titled Nicknames, which has been performed both as a stage reading full production at Meta Theater. Speaking of Meta, joining us tonight is Bruce McIntosh, the director of Meta, who has acted with David in Nicknames and will be reading it with him tonight. David is the author of the popular memoirito, WOW, as I said, and WOW 2 will be released very soon. He has taught theater games at Meta and is the workshop leader of Reading Your Work Aloud, his 5th workshop coming up on March 12th at Somos. Bruce has lived in Taos since 1994. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in English from Antioch and was trained as an actor in New York City and Los Angeles. Bruce works professionally as a stage and film actor, playwright, screenwriter, and director. He also has written a manuscript of poetry that will knock your socks off. He leads weekly acting workshops, selects and directs plays, and co-teaches acting in area schools and Taos County Juvenile Detention Center. So David and Bruce will read nicknames, and then David will talk about a little bit about the process from page to the stage and how it sparked whole new avenues of writing. Then we will open up for questions, and I'll have some questions to begin, I hope. Nicknames: David Perez, Bruce McIntyre.
Man, look at his face, it's so thin.
Remember when we used to call him Fat Louie?
Not anymore. How old was he again?
43, dead from a 38.
Fuck.
Of course, nobody in the building heard a gunshot. You know how that goes.
Yeah, you know evil. See no evil.
Deaf and dumb, bro. Deaf and dumb.
Super found the body, huh?
Yep. And the only reason he found the body is because his next door neighbor was complaining about the funky ass smell coming from Louis' apartment. He was dead for 2 whole days, rotting there alone and shit.
That's messed up. Suicide. Seen too many of these funerals. Been to too many. So many of the fellows from the block are gone. Tarzan, Cheetah, Hippie Ray, now Louis. Most of the funerals have been held right here. I'm telling you, man, Ortiz family's making sick money off us. They should have a room reserved for the guys in the block. You know what I'm saying? Forget the Survivor Series, the fucking Australian Outback. How about the Millbrook Projects? How about 138th Street, Brook Avenue?
Our own killing fields.
And then whoever isn't dead is in the joint. Sunshine. Hustling. Damn. It's hard to keep track.
You know, I stopped counting a long time ago.
You know what just hit me? You hardly ever refer to the guys in the block by their real names. I mean, I don't know if I know what their real names are. I mean, I know some.
Well, let's have a test. I give a nickname, and you say why we call them that.
What about their real name?
Well, whoever knows can say it.
Okay, shoot.
Tarzan.
That's Frankie, I don't remember his last name.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, he was Tarzan because he had these long arms.
Right,
That's
and,
the real.
right, and Gorilla was already taken.
By who?
That friend of Buddy's. You know, what's his face? The linebacker dude.
Oh, yeah, right.
And we also call him McGill.
Yeah. I don't remember that guy's name either. Or Buddy's name. Yeah, you're making it too complicated, man. You're adding the guy's real name and shit. Okay. What was Fat Louis' last name?
Santos.
Okay. Right.
Come on, I want to keep playing.
Okay, well, let's make it. I mean, like make it boom, boom, boom. You say the nickname, I say the reason.
Okay,
Go.
Cheetah.
Because he was Tarzan's brother and he had a long arms too.
Remember Cheetah playing handball? He used to use those arms like he was playing high alive.
Yeah.
Like a whip.
Bad mother.
I cried when Cheetah got killed. But how stupid was that? Mugging a dealer in broad daylight. Stupid, stupid.
That was because Tarzan had OD. Cheetah just lost him.
Oh, come on, he didn't lose shit. Cheetah had a Jones and needed his fix and thought he was bad and took that dude off, and that was that. You pay the price, bro.
You still wanna...
Yeah, but you know, you're right. Let's keep it simple.
Alright, why don't I start?
Okay,
Sunshine.
because he had yellow teeth.
Hustling.
Because he will borrow a quarter and you will owe him $1.
Fat Ray.
Duh.
Ah, Hippie Ray.
Because she was always tripping on bladder acid.
Cookie Man.
Oh, because he ate Oreo cookies, he had those black specks on his teeth.
That's not why we call him that.
It wasn't?
Nah, he got that nickname because of this TV commercial about cookies that he was always singing.
Well, that was Oreo cookies.
No, it
It's
wasn't.
like I'm telling you, bro.
Forget the cookies. Here's one for you. Crazy Jackie.
Good one. Good one.
That's what I'm talking about.
Crazy Jackie. I remember when she used to dance topless, the Black Magic Woman, with a bunch of us just sitting there, stoned, staring at that Nubian skin. You know, this is gonna sound weird, but her nipples reminded me of Hershey's Kisses.
Better than Oreos.
I was always intimidated like hell, you know? She was like confident, you know?
Yeah, don't be getting no hard on in a funeral hall. Huh?
But you know what's funnier? As far as I know, nobody ever groped her or even said anything disrespectful. We just stare and say, damn.
That's what we said. You know, this was cool. It's like we were part of some secret society with all these special names, all exclusive and whatnot. It's like we all saw something in each other. Some I don't know. It was unique, you know?
Yeah.
It's a good time.
I hope Louis heard us. He would have appreciated it. Right, Louis? You would have appreciated it? We were always talking about back in the day. Playing snaps, you know, what people call the dozens. We call the playing snaps. Hitting the freights. Drinking Colt 45. Singing along with Hector Lavoe. And the Delphonics. After he lost all that weight, he fancied himself this Latin lover, a regular Ricardo Montalban. At parties, Louis would be to the girls like, yo, baby, are you a movie star? He used it all the time, it never worked. Good time. I wish we could hang out more, Gypsy.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, you're the only one that still calls me.
And why?
Because I was always moved. Nixon.
Oh, God, I hated that nickname. Good times. We just need to stay in touch more, bro. You know, it seems like the only time we get together nowadays is at somebody's funeral home. Right here. Right here in Ortiz Funeral Home.
Death in the ghetto. Business is booming.
Business is booming. Business is booming. We're gonna miss you, Louis. Miss you bad.
Say hello to the fellas from the block.
Just a little bit of explanation as before we go into the Q&A discussion. This personal essay was originally called Funeral for Fat Louis. And it was written years before I even did WOW, which was done 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I had typed up some notes after the funeral, and including observations about nicknames. And later I hand wrote several additions and corrections that would make the story brilliant, put it in a file folder and forgot about it. Years later, some of the material that I had written about nicknames made its way into WOW. And then, you know, I put the funeral for Fat Louie again, away again. And years later, as Veronica stated, my son was looking over my latest book that's upcoming and saying, hey Dad, you know, you're moving along kind of quickly. You know, you're just jumping around. Maybe you should stay in this moment a little bit longer. So why don't you just treat it as a one-act play and stay there. And let the characters talk to each other, feel their surroundings. So, hey, son, that's a good idea. And so I did make one of my scenes in WOW 2 longer based on his suggestion. And there was something about the material that I was working on in WOW 2 that made me recall this funeral for Fat Louie. And so that had some interesting dialogue and a great little theme. And so I took it out of the file cabinet and did some rewrite, found the scores, and actually did like a trick. I did all the dialogue just to sort of jumpstart. I said, this could be a one-act play. And I just took all the characters and just put a colon mark. And then just reformatted it and had some of the non-dialogue as just description. It didn't make any sense, but I said, you know, let me make it look like a play. Just by reformatting it. And it was sort of giving me the impetus to actually make it into this theater piece. So it was like a kind of a little trick that people can try. When you just sort of reformat something, you could make it, you know, stanzas, create a poem. Say, how would this even sound like a poem, or look like a poem? So I did that and found its chord, did some rewrites, and what you saw is what eventually came out. And I say eventually because once you begin to stage it, once you hear the words out loud, then all kinds of things happen. And we're going to talk about that in the Q&A, but let me just point out three things that just happened very quickly when we first did it. When I first did it, we did it as this stage reading. So it was at Meta Theater. It was part of this whole evening. It was called When Death Comes. When Death was a theme, and nicknames was part of that evening. So Carla, who was part of the organizing, it was myself, Lynn Hamrick, and Carla Eoff, when we had like a makeshift coffin, she asked, okay, where are the guys standing? It was like, oh. I hadn't thought about it. Are we standing and talking in front of the coffin? Do we sit down? Do we sit down and stand up? Might he be on this side of the coffin and I'd be on this side of the coffin? And I hadn't thought about that. When I was writing the story, it was just the story about them at the funeral home. So that detail, so well, again, when I go back to the story, and I want to go back to it as a story, I'm going to have to think about where these people are standing or where they're sitting. And do they get up? And why do they get up? And so on and so forth. So that was one thing, just by a simple direction about what do you want to talk? You know, and then you got to do it that people can hear you, and are you standing close to the audience? Are you standing further away? Where are the lights? So you could be seen. All these considerations, and some of it caused it to be rewritten as we were getting ready to perform it. Oh, well, if we're going to do that, then let me add this line or change this line. Another thing, this was kind of funny, with Bruce, when we first were doing it, he goes, David, you know, this might sound kind of embarrassing, but how do you make the sign of the cross? It's like, Bruce, you don't know how to make this. Say, yeah, we didn't do it in my neighborhood. So the first time we did it, he actually had him copying it, like the guy with the book, you know, his, and he's sort of like, you know, copying what I'm doing. Now, I wrote it like we did it tonight, which we weren't going to do it, but it just came out that we just did it at the same time. That's how I wrote it, but because Bruce wasn't familiar with it, I said, well, maybe we'll change that in the actual performance, to have the character, his character, you know, copying me as if he doesn't know it. And that was yet another detail that came up during the performance. And lastly, the jacket. When we were just doing a read-through recently, just to sort of remind ourselves of the words, you know, well, what are we wearing? Oh, right. I think I'll wear a jacket. That would seem respectful in the funeral home. And Bruce was yeah, he's going to wear a jacket, which made you think about another thing. What are you wearing? What's the wardrobe? Are we wearing a coat? When does this take place? Is it in the winter? Is it in the summer? Mike wearing a coat in the scene, and maybe this funeral home is not heated really well, or we're talking about the bitter South Bronx, where shit happens, and maybe doing this will add a physicality to the performance. Is the weather important? What they're wearing important? And all this, in terms of adding detail to the writing, this is one of the things I found the most helpful about acting is the details. So when you perform it, and you find out about the details and what can then go back into the essay or into something else. By doing and acting it out, you have found sensory things happening. You know, maybe the theater that you're in dictates, well, we can't have an actual body. We don't even have a coffin. What, you know, do we just make believe? You know, so all these things inform the play and then go right back to where you started. So that's, the art of adaptation goes both ways. And when you perform it or just read it out loud, all kinds of things can happen. Thank you.
Okay, could you three come up? 2, 3, count. Okay, let me do it. Sit up here. Yeah, he wants to, sure, come on.
Do you want to go?
Guys.
I have a question, so I want to ask you.
Come on, bro.
I'm trying to be cool here and,
Water's
you know,
fine.
whatever. So, actually, I had these magnificent questions, all written down at home, which I didn't bring.
Really?
But I have questions now. And one of them is, unless somebody is burning with a question, does somebody have a question?
It's a burning
Right
question.
now, burning question.
Burning in your pocket, you need to take it out. Ask us.
Was this not a wonderful whole performance? I really feel like... so I'm interested in the little bit of what David was saying and the fact that Terry has a book that came out after the performance of how the performance
Change the writing.
does lead back to, to the writing on the page. And how different that is it? What are the differences between that? Yes?
Yeah, okay,
Oh.
so it's us directed to me. So I wrote all these pieces that I never thought were a cohesive whole. I just kind of wrote poems or pieces. And then as they became something that I thought of putting into a one-person show, they evolved, as David so eloquently said. They evolve because as you act them and as you hear them out in the space, they change. So the pieces that were written changed in the performance, and then coming out of the performance into the book, they changed again, they evolved again to format them for the book, because there are some things that you see in the performance and that are made clear when you do them and when you're saying them and doing them at the same time that don't work in a book. So things have to evolve and change. Also, after you've heard yourself say something over and over again, you start to, it evolves in your mind. I've, in performances, started to change lines that sounded more truthful in a new way of saying them in the moment that became the new way of saying it and the new way of writing it into the book. So having it said many times out loud does give it kind of an evolution. It makes it grow, change, evolve. It does change as you go. Absolutely, 100%. And then new writing pieces that I have are now more dramatic because as I'm writing them, because I've had the experience of performing work, now I can see them as dramatic pieces as I'm writing them, which I never did before. You know what I mean? So, does that make sense? So that something like Finish Line becomes a dramatic a prose poem that I would have never thought to do that way until I had performed the other pieces. Does that make sense?
I get it.
Okay, good. Do you get it? Do you get it? Okay.
Bruce, what about you? What do you have to say about that?
About what?
I talked too long to remember the question.
So, can I ask a question?
Sure, that's, we're hoping.
What's the difference in the outcome between the pre-acted and the post-acted? I mean, does dialogue exist in the writing then, or what kind of things are you talking about?
Well, sometimes, but like if I'm doing my mom, right? I'm doing my mom here, and there's no written spot for that cry, right? It became, I wrote something very descriptive when I first wrote it, and then when I acted it, the person I was directing was like, you have to do it, you can't say it, you gotta show it. So then you take that out, now I do it. And then when it goes back into the book, it gets written totally different than the first way it was written. Because now I have to explain that cry without the excessive explanation in the first write, without you being able to see me. And then detailing it in a way that makes sense.
Concisely.
What?
Then describing the action instead of...
Right. In a poetic way.
Right.
Describing it in a poetic way that gives it a different life than it would if you see me actually doing it.
So I guess the question would be also, when it goes back, and for any of you, when it goes back to the page, are we trying to sort of somehow take the performance piece onto the page, or does the performance really lead to something else? In other words, that it's a cumulative rather than, oh, this was good, and I wanna write it. I want my mother's cry in this, or does something happen in the performance that really the poem or the prose piece will completely?
I want them to read it the way they would have felt it if they saw it. And when I first wrote it like I was never going to perform it. So I wrote it like a descriptive piece. Then after you perform it, you want it to be written in a way that makes that audience who's reading it feel the way they would if they were seeing you do it, which means doing it in another way. So it's informed by the performance, and it evolves and it changes, I think.
I haven't had Terry's experience of working, where you worked on a workshop of poems, turn that into a one-woman piece, and then use some of the material and other material.
Right.
And that eventually became the book.
Right.
Oh, right. Mine was an unfinished essay, and in that unfinished essay, there was a lot of notes. Oh, develop this, delete that.
Yeah.
Because it was just notes, right? Some of it, well, there was actually a paragraph that makes sense, and some of it was just, oh, I should think about such and such a thing. And Jackie, Crazy Jackie was referred to in the play, was actually part of the story that it's based on a true story, of course. And me and my friend Danny, then we run into Jackie afterwards. And she's totally different, with business suit, like, wow, remember you? So yeah, I remember what I used to do. And, but, then in the play, I just made a memory of the two guys remembering Crazy Jackie. And it just seemed like it had more dramatic impact. Now, I haven't gone back to Funeral for Fat Louie and say, okay, how would I make this to a story, except to write again and keep this from nicknames. Because you can just say, just have dialogue. And dialogue can work whether it's on a play or on a prose piece. It's just the formatting is different, but it's the same dialogue. But then I would think about, well, maybe leave the Crazy Jackie as a memory and not as a character in the story. And then I wrote down, or not. Just go back to it because it's a prose piece and it has something different. But one of the things that it did do for when I do revisit Fat Louie or other writings, that this experience of doing it it just made me more appreciate the detail about what I was describing about what a little thing like, I would say the clothing, can do to a piece. If you remark on, hey bro, you still wearing that same leather jacket? I can't believe it fits you. What did you buy that in the Salvation Army? Yeah, And all of a sudden a new fact about that this guy's always worn a leather jacket for decades and he's going in the Salvation Army becomes part of the story, and only because I had to think about the outfit when we were performing it. And it might have slipped my mind, totally felt irrelevant to the story. So I was able to discover discover more detail. And one thing, and this is part of the workshop, when you just engage your senses, when you're just moving around, things happen. All of a sudden, you're not just up, when I see a lot of the workshop, you're not just with the neck up. There's this. And you get in contact with that, and that helps inform the piece. What it's done for me, the nicknames has made me, oh man, I like this kind of writing when I play. So I was taking I actually took other stories that were undeveloped, and I made them into one act.
Right.
And and then I got a little high on my horse. So I four of them. Wow, I'm on a roll. And then what you gotta do and really fun.
You're gonna have a one-person show.
One person show, I'm gonna submit it to Samuel French.
Parts, both of them.
Yeah. And then I had one of them read out loud. Hey, this shit came out pretty good. Read it. And they read it. I was like, damn, that sucks. Okay, rewrite it. But anyway, it just opened up this whole other avenue of writing. So here's a whole thing with theater and with one person shows and anyway, that's mine.
Yes?
I just want to add to this discussion, it's not a question, but something you said. I was just reading about the development, I think most everybody in here would remember Guys and Dolls. Mm-hmm. Some people wouldn't if they were younger. They said the first time they performed it, the first act was an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just,
no, you can't
do that. Mm-hmm. And then they started thinking about how they could cut down the book. And all of a sudden it came to them. They put Nathan in a pinstripe suit. And all of a sudden that costume told volumes about his character. Mm-hmm. And then the woman, they put her in this, she wasn't a Salvation Army worker. Then they made her the Salvation Army worker, put her in the uniform. And again, they could just leave out all the details of the backstory. So
it's a show don't tell moment that happens in theater, which is, you have to write out stuff more fully when you're writing it, and when you're in theater you can just show something in such a brief, that's such a great example of just showing something in a brief moment with a costume piece that leaves out all this other stuff, unnecessary stuff you don't need, right? I love that.
And so probably you could do the same thing with writing, just like you were talking about about his leather jacket, or that tells you're still wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, tells volumes about the character and his life.
Right, and Bruce is known mostly as an actor both on stage and in film, and also has written screenplays and that have been produced and stuff. But what interests me, being a poet, is this poetry manuscript that he wrote that is so powerful, Fathers and Sons. I mean, it's really beautifully done. And what I'd like to ask is, so here you are primarily, in other words, you don't start out as a poet. You don't start out as a prose writer. You start out as both an actor and writing plays or reading plays, and that. What was the you know, the twist, what benefits did that experience have for you writing this? Really, we have to do it again. This manuscript, this poetry manuscript, were you thinking, for instance, dramatically as you were writing that also?
Well, thank you for asking me that question, because I was thinking a little bit as I came up, what am I doing up here? But that actually, that poetry manuscript started as journaling in a little writing workshop where we meditate and then write. And my father was undergoing the last stage of ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, at about age 64. And so it was kind of, I just wanted to talk about that, my father. And then these memories came out, and you know, most of you probably been in writing workshops, kind of surprises you as your hand moves out of come. And so then I began to, afterwards, and it was, you know, one of those 3-subject spiral notebooks. Of course, there was sort of an outpouring, and so I started typing it up. And then I really don't remember, you know, the aha moment, if it could be called that, but I said, you know, I think these want to be poems. And I had written a little poetry in high school, you know, pretty lousy poetry. I mean, you guys wrote poetry, I don't know about, if you wrote great poetry in high school. I didn't, but you know, I messed around a little bit. And so, but something in me went to that. And then I was also trained in New York in an old school acting conservatory program where you were reading Tennessee Williams, and you know, these guys were quite poetic writers, you know, so I was used to hearing dramatic literature be poetic. You know, there's a kind of bird that don't allow but one time on its wings in the sky, and that's when it died, you know, like Tennessee Williams stuff. And so I had that in my ears a little bit, and so I started just, it's kind of like what David said, formatting. What does poems look like? Oh, okay. And so I, number one, you know, and laid out. Then I had the good fortune to run into Veronica, and she really helped me shape them. And then a friend of mine, you know, somewhat well-known person said, I like these, because she was running the workshop. Why don't you read these? And so I read them in Taos many years ago, and I was walking down the street, you know those moments in Taos, it's summer, and you're walking down the street after a little thing in a cafe, you read something, and some guy came up to me who was attending a workshop from out of state, I believe, and he said, you know something, man, that should be a one-man show! So, you know, it's not, it hadn't yet evolved like to what you've done, but yeah, maybe it will. But I think something about the writing itself, and then because of an acting background, you know, I don't get behind the podium too well and go, the sun came down over the harbor, and this gull drifted aimlessly. I thought, you know, I don't really know how to do that, as I just demonstrated very well. And, so they sort of came out more as if it would be a little piece of something out of a play, and you know, so I did have a little experience with that. And then I told David, go like this, because you get me going, man. And then finally, I've also had the experience of several plays being made into feature films, and that's a whole other thing, where guys are on the set. I can remember a pretty well-known actor saying, you know, as I was fighting to keep this monologue, bro, this is a movie, it's not theater, Jesus Christ! And I, you know, sometimes I would win, and sometimes I would lose, but there's that dance of the different mediums, and certainly writing for performance is you know, I mean, if you say in a novel, he walked in.
Okay,
and
he didn't want
set
to
his,
talk.
He set his black, somewhat thrift store-looking Italian-made black jacket on the back of the folding chair, tawny, I'm going to steal that word from your poem, tawny folding chair with great delicacy before he sat down. Well, yeah, okay, that's a novel.
Other things that happen, take a long time, get condensed because you can't remember it all. You know, it's like shortened, time is shortened. So for me, I'm always interested in time, but in a very different way, not for how long the audience's attention is, although, I don't know, maybe I'm conditioned and I don't even know, but more about how time is so elastic in terms of memory and trauma and what sticks out, and how some minutes are like our years, and some years are like, you know, a day. You know, you don't remember anything but a day in that year. So I'm interested in that as a writer, more than I am how long the audience is going to sit. But I don't know. Time is very interesting to me when I write.
Well, I think, you know, there's different genres. If somebody's writing a novel and developing, you know, a scene, you know, a house, let's say, and, you know, and they're describing the furniture, and then as they describe the kitchen table, you know, they remember their grandma, you know, who used to do something, you know, then they go back, you know, coming back to the old country and, you know, what she wore and where she came to the U.S. and what was the first table before this table came out, you know, and you just, and it's just fleshing out, and it just enriches everything because of the genre. And people usually, when they if they're going to see a theater piece or they're going to read a novel, there's different expectations. So at the same time, I think one of the things we try to do as writers, and I find the theater has helped in that, is a friend of mine a long time ago, when I first started writing, said, "I wish I had more time, I would have made it shorter." And it was just, what do you really need? Do you really need a paragraph to describe the cloud moving to the left? Really? And some people do it brilliantly. It's like, you know what, I would have followed you for 2 paragraphs because it's so poetic, and it's wonderful, you know. So it's what the expectations are. But it is true, I think, that a lot of, because of technology, because of quick reads and the internet, and people going from one thing to another, the attention span can be more challenging for both writing and theater. Although there are people that says, you know what, give me an 800-page War and Peace, I will just live in it. And that's, you know, there's an audience for that, and it always will be. And then there's the, you know, the other more shorter kind of theater. One thing that I think is always helpful with any genre is just, and again, we talk about this in the workshop, is just read it out loud, and if you bore yourself, you might be boring the audience. That's the way of knowing, Jesus, I'm going on and on. I'm looking at my own watch. I gotta stand myself in the mirror for another 5 minutes to finish this page. Maybe try to get that red highlighter and just start, you know. So that's like a good thing to sort of do yourself. And then, of course, you know, hearing it. I mean, that's part of what theater is. Well, we got hearing somebody else say it. We're not gonna say it. This is written by somebody else, so you got to. And sometimes what they bring to it, especially if it's a cold reading, you give somebody, here, you know, you're a 4-year-old, you're her grandmother, go. You set it up a little bit, and they read it in a certain way, and you're like, Jesus, that's not what I intended at all. But that was better, and you take it, and, you know.
I have a go ahead.
I think you're bringing up a really important point, too, that makes me think. I was reading a book recently. There's a cast of a group of people in India who recite from memory, who are illiterate, 8-hour pieces. And you're born into a family, and the way I imagine it, and the way it was kind of described, is you're out with your grandfather, and you're maybe
in a field planting, and he'll say, if we were using Shakespeare, when did the session? When did the session? When did the sessions of Sweet Silent Thought? When did the sessions, and it takes some years to memorize that, and then they're paid when they go to the festivals, once they go good, they get good at it. But the thought of, say, any of us in this room, you know, sitting around at Kit Carson Park, say, for 8 hours, while a guy recites word perfectly. Like, I kind of think if they get to 7 hours, you go, dude, you know, your grandfather said you reverse those 2 words on that.
All right, I want my money back.
Yeah, so,
It's 2 words.
I think you're getting to something, you know, because there are many parts of the world. I'm imagining after reading
A
something
longer
like
attention.
that. Well, you go down there and you sit for 8 hours and you hear, you know, odes are part of your culture that are recited from memory. They're not written down because the guy's illiterate, so that's not how he learned them. They've been passed down for many centuries. And then at hour 8, you know, hey, that was good, okay, I'll see. So, I don't think in my own sense is that's not quite possible. I kind of, you know, another extreme of time and attention in writing and sharing of literature.
Well, and I had this aha moment. I thought it was very interesting. If you are performing your own work, it's like a marriage of like the best of 2 things, because you can communicate so much with your tone and your movements, and then at the same time it's your work, so you can really explore time in that way. And it's just really interesting because you can think about it like there's surely a play. You try to turn a poem into a play. It's a poem that's dealing with kind of that time warp that trauma gives us. You have to figure out how to do that with 2 people talking, or maybe one person monologuing. But yeah, you know what I mean. Whereas like if it's you speaking and then you're acting it too,
Yeah.
it's pretty.
Yeah, it's like
Wow,
to
comes
give
out.
over control of someone doing me, playing me. Not ready for that. And somebody asked me, you know, like, oh, I'd love to, you know, they saw the whole show. I'd love to do it. I'd love to, you know, can I, let's talk. You know, I never called her, because I don't know. I mean, like, that's a brave thing to turn over your life, to let somebody else to do for you. It's like, right, it feels a little safer to have me do it myself.
I have one final question, since they're all actors. What is the difference between a director and an editor?
Oh, that's good.
And I've actually edited for 3 of them, and
Well, I'd say briefly that there's a Venn diagram, right, where there's a middle place where they overlap somewhat. A good director will say, you don't need that. You know, you already did that, or can you act that instead? That's redundant, just like an editor would. But a director's job is to bring to life what you have. They've really, most of what they do, I think, is, although they can cut and tell you what doesn't work and what doesn't, and you're fighting for the monologue with the actor, you know. But they're also, their job is to bring to life what you've already created, you know, to breathe life into something that already exists. Whereas an editor is kind of building something up, putting muscle tissue on a skeleton. That's the way I think of it,
That's a good.
you know?
Yeah, I would say you need both. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
you need that other eye to tell you, you know, what's working and what's not, and also with a skilled director and skilled editor to try things. You know, my son he wasn't doing it to edit, but was, you know, try this as a 1-act. It was like a prompt, or you know, or whatever. And so you get that as an editor, and the director's like, you know what, you know, why don't you enter from the room on the left? Go on stage, and you know what, just fix the table for a little while. Don't say anything. And then start.
It's like
Right?
the director lives in the body and the editor lives on the page.
Right.
More so. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say, you know, a director does say that line doesn't work, or why are you saying that line, or you've already said that line before. But most of what they're doing is they're living in your body. They're telling you
Yeah.
how to make it live and breathe,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Out into space.
Right. And as Bill
Bruce?
We're getting old. It's
Bruce,
okay.
yeah. But he wants to be Bill. He wants to be Bill at one point in time. There is, in film, they say in film is a director's meeting,
Oh, yes.
and in theater is an actor's meeting.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in film it's a cut, let's do it again, let's move the camera, you know, and then.
And your best one is cut.
Right, and the director is in charge of all these other elements, from the photography to the lighting to the sound, you know, to the wardrobe. The director is, you know, and in theater, lights go down, you're on there, you're on, that's it. You're on. You've gotten the cues, but is that, no, cut. Can I start all over again? I mean, sometimes it might happen if you forget your lines, you know, and you're student enough to, you know, retrace. But that's why, even though the director is still a vital part, but you know, there's no cut. Try it as, you know, you can't do 80 takes on the stage. That's you, and some people love it because of that. Wow, this is me. So I'm gonna make it different every night, and I'm gonna look at you. And next time I look at you, I'm actually gonna stand and look at you. And I didn't do that the last night. I'm doing it this night, and you're making, and then it's fresh. They say in theater that every night is different. Every night is different. So how do you do that? And anyway, Zip, you're supposed to cut me. Yeah.
I'm gonna think about that one. What I mean is, I think they spoke very well about it. I don't have anything valuable to add right now. It's a great question.
Thank you all for coming, and thank these wonderful